would not mind seeing Daredevil again.
Historically, we've been light in that department.
Hey, welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Arey, and you've probably already heard the news. Marvel is scrapping Daredevil Born Again, and they're starting fresh.
We need to take the whole line back to formula.
Back to formula. Back to formula.
But hang on, I'm going to explain why this is actually a good thing.
What? But I thought you liked Daredevil.
Oh, dude, I love Daredevil, so I'm really excited to see Marvel take a step back and do this show right. Now, a little later, I'm going to bring in two Marvel experts, ScreenCrush Editor-in-Chief Matt Singer and YouTuber Whitney Van Landingham, so they can make sense of all this. But first, let me explain what the hell's actually going on here and why the Daredevil show is probably going to be awful. And a little later, I want to talk about what I hope Marvel does with this, because this could potentially remake the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the most exciting way possible. So we all know that Marvel has been great at making movies for more than a decade. What you may not know is how unconventionally this studio operates. Now, normally a studio hires a screenwriter, then finds a director to shoot the script. The director is then given the artistic license to create this story. But at Marvel, a central creative force, Kevin Feige, oversees deputy producers who each manage a different franchise, hiring screenwriters and directors to oversee these projects. Now, the directors do have some artistic license as long as they hit certain benchmarks that are already set for the franchise as a whole.
What do you mean?
Well, like how Ragnarok had to end with the Asgardians on the run and then they were running into Thanos' ship. But Taika Waititi was allowed to add in his own flourishes and style.
Piss off, Ghost!
Now, what's interesting about Marvel's approach is it's rare for a studio to have such a hands-on approach with its franchises, and Marvel was actually running more like a traditional TV show.
Okay then, how do you run a TV show?
Well, typically a TV show has a producer, usually the show's creator and head writer, called the showrunner. This person is the main creative force behind the show, like the director of a film. Some showrunners have become famous for a very distinct style. Aaron Sorkin, Dan Harmon, Terry Matalas, Vince Gilligan. These writers all have their own fans the way directors like Christopher Nolan or Steven Spielberg have their fans. Now, TV directors have a much smaller role in the creative process, executing the vision of the showrunner. So, over the years, Marvel actually evolved to work more like a giant TV show. But, according to The Hollywood Reporter and the new book, The Reign of Marvel Studios, Marvel stumbled when they began to make shows for Disney+. Sorry, give me just 1 second.
Hey, what are you doing on your phone anyways?
Oh, sorry man, this is Dungeon Hunter 6. They're the sponsor of this video.
Oh, what's Dungeon Hunter 6?
Glad you asked. This is a free-to-play mobile ARPG with a unique hero collector feature rendered in a stunning fantasy style. The gameplay features fast-paced hack-and-slash combat style with various builds and skills to utilize as you fight big bosses.
Oh, I bet a game like that costs a lot of money.
Nope, it is absolutely free to play. You can download it now using the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen if you're viewing on a PC. So one of my favorite things about this game is that after you defeat a boss, you get to keep using that boss. You can summon up to 3 of them onto the battlefield to become members of your squad and perform combo skills. There are more than 100 bosses to conquer and units are updated monthly, so the game literally never gets old. The new version of the game also has better graphics that are optimized for mobile with stunning skill animations, ensuring the best visual experience and smoothest combat on mobile devices. You can play with guildmates and fight in real-time guild wars, upgrade with a variety of skill tree options, and even trade items via the auction system, which is perfect for when you accumulate stuff that you just don't need anymore. So you can download the game now for free on both Android and iOS using my link in the description, or scan this QR code if you are viewing this on a PC. Use my link and you'll get a starter pack worth $50, including 10 summoning scrolls, 1 SSR Lieutenant, the Demonic Wolf, plus 1 accessory pack. You can even use your game account to enter the Launch Lucky Spin event for free to win great prizes like iPhone 15 Pro Max, PS5, Apple Watch, and more starting on October 15th. So check out our link in the description for details. Now back to what I was saying. Now normally when you make a TV show, you shoot a pilot.
Oh, what's a pilot?
I'll let Jules explain.
Well, the way they pick TV shows is they make one show. That show's called a pilot. Then they show that one show to the people who pick shows, and on the strength of that one show, they decide if they want to make more shows.
But Marvel just skipped this process, just greenlighting shows without pilot scripts. They also broke with the traditional TV format, hiring writers to script the series, but then handing creative control over to the director. For most of their shows, this resulted in a story that felt more like a long movie that was just cut up into sections. That's why when you watch Secret Invasion, some episodes are only 30 minutes long, others are 45 minutes, and some of them just seem to stop in the middle of the story for no reason. reason.
Okay, so why did Marvel change their TV format like that?
Well, dude, because they're Marvel. They've been so innovative with everything else, they thought they could just reinvent TV on the fly. Like how Marvel movies have a very improvisational, let's fix it in post attitude. But you cannot just fix it in post with the TV show. When you're creating 6 to 8 hours of programming, the production schedule is insane. So when the studio bosses started to tweak the shows, it caused all these post-production problems and reshoots that led to splits with the creative talent. I mean, some reports say Secret Invasion reshot basically the entire show. And we see this creative tension behind the scenes on Marvel shows, like on Moon Knight, when the show creator and writer Jeremy Slater quit and Mohamed Diab took over. And this might explain why so much of Moon Knight felt like a sliced-up movie, with plot points repeating themselves over and over again. How many times can they search for an artifact that's going to lead them to the new place, you know? But Secret Invasion is when the Marvel method really broke down. The Hollywood Reporter piece is damning. Now, Marvel hired a TV legend, Kyle Bradstreet, who is a veteran of the excellent series Mr. Robot. He worked on writing the series for an entire year before Marvel replaced him with Brian Tucker, because they wanted to take the series in a new, presumably lamer direction. No offense to Mr. Tucker, I don't think any of this is his fault. So then Ali Salim and another guy named Thomas Bakuza were then brought on as directors. And then, according to THR's article, the creative process collapsed last summer. According to the article, what happened next debilitated the productions as factions became entrenched and leaders vied for supremacy during Secret Invasion's pre-production in London. A Marvel insider was quoted as saying it was weeks of people not getting along and it erupted. So by September of 2022, a good portion of the team had just been replaced, and the Marvel executive overseeing the show, Chris Gary, is now expected to leave the studio when his contract expires this year. And by the way, we covered extensively what happened behind the scenes of Secret Invasion in this video, where we talked about the Russian invasion of Ukraine and how it set everything back. A lot of things went wrong for this show. I'm not pointing fingers at any single creative force. And this brings us to Daredevil and how Marvel is finally fixing this problem. The writer and actor strike this year paused the production of Daredevil Born Again. That's the 16-episode Daredevil series that was supposed to launch next year. This pause gave Marvel time to reevaluate what they'd shot so far, and they decided that basically the show sucked. According to THR, Daredevil didn't even appear in costume until episode 4, and they weren't happy with the tone of the series, which was lighthearted and not dark like its Netflix predecessor. And I should say that for years now, Marvel Studios has been under immense pressure from Disney to make as much content as possible, cranking out more hours of programming in Phase 4 than Phases 1 through 3 combined. And the TV shows have slowly been getting worse. There were the rewritten endings of Hawkeye and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the uneven storytelling of Moon Knight, and the sorry y'all, we ran out of time CGI on She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel. But Secret Invasion broke a lot of fans. I think fan enthusiasm for Loki has been dampened by how terrible that show was. Fans feel burned, and now Marvel is finally back on track to make it right. And the thing is, guys, Loki deserves a massive amount of fan enthusiasm. Just a few episodes in, and the show's great. That's why we created this Loki-inspired merch at our merch store, ScreenCrushMerch.com. Now, we designed these shirts ourselves. There's the variant hoodie with the ScreenCrush variant logo, the usual variants t-shirt with film and TV's most offending time travelers, Miss Minute's Dolly Clock, Doug as Loki, and many more. Shopping our merch store is the best way you can directly support our channel and what we do here. So, as always, big thanks for watching and check out the link below. So now, going forward, Marvel has decided to adopt a traditional TV structure. They're going to commission TV pilot scripts, hire showrunners, write show bibles, lock in scripts before they shoot them, and then they'll have executives who are full-time TV executives instead of having executives split time between movies and TV shows. Marvel producer Brad Winderbaum told THR, "We need executives that are dedicated to this medium, that are going to focus on streaming, focus on television, because they are two different forms." So from now on, Marvel isn't just going to shoot a show and see what works. They're sticking to a real schedule, which should give us more moments like this. And God help us, no more moments like this.
Give me your gun, goddammit.
It's also revamping its development process. Showrunners will write pilots and show bibles. The days of Marvel shooting an entire series from She-Hulk to Secret Invasion, then looking at what's working and what's not, are done. Now, a little later, I want to tell you how I think Marvel should implement this new plan. But first, I want to hear from the Marvel Brain Trust, ScreenCrush Editor-in-Chief Matt Singer and YouTuber Whitney Van Landingham. So that's what's happened. Now to understand what's going to happen and where we go from here, I have to talk to ScreenCrush Editor-in-Chief Matt Singer and Whitney Van Landingham, the co-host of the brand new Guardians of the Galaxy podcast, and also you can find her on the Whitney Vision YouTube channel. So, we've all read this piece from the Hollywood Reporter. I was not surprised by it. Matt, I'm curious, for you, you've reviewed all of these Marvel shows. You've been with them every single step of the way. For you, when did this flaw in structure become apparent, that they weren't doing traditional TV, they were doing large movies cut up into pieces?
I feel like the first couple of shows went well enough that you were you were sort of going, yeah, they kind of have this figured out. And then after the first few shows, I don't really know what changed at that point, but it did start to feel like something did change. And when you read this article, I know my reaction was just a lot of like, oh, that makes sense. Because it felt like all the complaints, like if I went back and looked at all the things I was saying about a lot of these shows, like Moon Knight and Secret Invasion and all of these different things, like where I was saying all of these things about how the tone would be all over the place, or the story would be kind of choppy, you know, or like all those sorts of things. Then you would read this article and how people are quitting or being fired behind the scenes. There's power struggles behind the scenes, and people can't decide what kind of show they're going to make. Or they would shoot all this stuff and then they would go in the editing room and decide it wasn't working and try to fix it with a reshoot or re-editing or something. And then you look back at what you saw and you go, well, that all checks out. That, like, I didn't know any of these details, but in hindsight, none of them were surprising after you read that piece. It sort of made sense of a lot of the issues that I was having watching these shows in real time, week to week.
And the book that's out now, this is called The Reign of Marvel Studios. It's a great read. We had the co-authors here on the channel last week talking about it. They also talked about how Marvel, you know, they exactly what's in this article, they pushed away traditional TV structure, and they did, according to this, they looked at certain projects and decided Hawkeye would be a better show than a movie, which I thought was kind of puzzling, because Hawkeye was the first time I watched one of these shows, and I thought, this doesn't seem episodic. This just seems like something they've cut up into pieces. Whitney, how about you? I mean, you've covered Marvel extensively during this entire TV. What was there a point for you when you were like, this feels wrong?
Honestly, WandaVision was just such a banger straight out of the gate. And I rode that high for a while. So even through Hawkeye, where I did also feel like stuff was a little disjointed, it did really feel like, okay, this should have, I guess, been a 4-hour movie instead of just an entire TV series. And I think that I gave a lot of benefit of the doubt, especially to the earlier ones. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I kind of fell off. That one also felt like it should have been a movie to me. I know. I'm one of the very few people where on the list, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is not towards the top for me.
It was uneven. I agree that there were certain decisions that were made, and maybe, Matt, that goes back to what you were saying about different creative voices coming in. But I think that one had a pretty steady hand at the wheel, from what I remember.
That makes sense. It didn't connect with me as much, especially because WandaVision was just so good. But I obviously took a hard pivot with Secret Invasion, because I could kind of deal with all of it up until then, because in every show there were really great episodes, and there was really cool stuff that was revealed and really cool plot lines that I truly enjoyed and thought did add to the overall MCU. So none of them were a waste of time for me. I thought that they were all, it's a TV show, not the best TV show I've ever seen for some of them. But Secret Invasion, man, that just messed me up. I had no idea why it was so dissatisfying, and the only parts that I felt were truly amazing were just the scenes between Fury and Vara, because those were absolutely incredible, but everything else was just so disjointed, so dissatisfying. The Maria Hill thing was ridiculous. That show really made me fall off the Marvel TV show wagon.
We did a video a while back, and I think it made a lot of fans fall off, because if you look at Loki breakdown views on YouTube channels, not that that's the best metric, but YouTube views are a good metric of fan enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Eventually, the views picked up, but nowhere near where they were.
I actually saw your tweet about that, and then I started looking at people's numbers, and I was like, oh shit, this is weird.
It was scary. It picked back up. We're fine, everybody. We're fine. If you're concerned at home, we're fine. We're doing all right. But I thought we would have this much after 2 days, But again, I think Loki's so good that the fans will come back for it. That's a different conversation.
For sure.
For me, around Moon Knight is when I started to go, ooh, this is getting repetitive. Every episode's the same thing. Ms. Marvel at least had its episodes where there were COVID problems and the budget was obviously less and some villain, but every episode was a different episode.
Yeah.
Whereas like Secret Invasion especially was one where the whole show seemed like it was that cut up movie, and it really, just really sucked. Matt, if Secret Invasion was this tipping point, do you think that Secret Invasion was their tipping point? Because it's interesting to hear they were continuing on with Daredevil up to this point.
I mean, I don't know. I guess it sounded to me, I don't know that this was explicitly stated in that article, but what it read to me like was, we had these strikes, one of which is still going on, and as a result, like Marvel had some time on its hands to like, everything got paused, and so they were able to look at what they had shot. So I don't know if it had as much to do with Secret Invasion as it had to do with the timing of, we've had to stop shooting everything we're shooting, let's take a look at what we've got, because there's nothing else we can do. And when they looked at it, they realized, this isn't working. Who could imagine that a TV show called Daredevil that doesn't, apparently, according to this article, doesn't have an appearance in costume of Daredevil for the first 3 or 4 episodes? I can't imagine why that wouldn't work. What a shocker.
Like, what do those episodes look like? I want to know. I want to know what the shit show actually looks like.
Apparently, according to this article, a lighthearted legal drama, which is so weird. And there was, the showrunner of Daredevil, Stephen DeKnight, I believe, said that the reason that he tweeted this, they changed the name to Born Again was so Disney could claim that it was a different show and not pay royalties to the original people. So maybe that's partially responsible for the change in tone. But Marvel's usually so good at giving fans what they want, or at least making that attempt. So it's it was a very strange pivot to me. The other behind the scenes things I've heard about Daredevil, and this is what's strange about this, right? When we talk about Marvel and we talk about here's this overall story, the rumors I've heard, take them for what they are. The rumors are Wilson Fisk running for mayor, and the platform he's running on is anti-vigilante. Anti-Daredevil, anti-Spider-Man. There's all this, like, these guys in the streets. Maybe there's some kind of mini Sokovia incident that happens in New York. Hell, that sounds great. You can bring the Punisher into that. Like, that premise alone sounds fantastic to me. But there you have the influence of Marvel Studios. But again, we go back to what this article talked about, which is the hiring of the showrunners, the vision, the message. It seemed like they were more interested in, okay, so here's the parameters, just go make a show. Yeah. And now they're going to have to adapt to this traditional storytelling for television. Whitney, do you think that's going to fit? Like, are we going to be able to get the Marvel that we like WandaVision, within this structure?
Man, I hope so, because that's the thing that is just so bizarre, is that they were just switching off, like, creative direction, just kind of passing it along, and learning that, like, because of the strikes, obviously, I don't think for a second that Marvel or Disney did this because they found it in their hearts to do the right thing. It's absolutely because of the strike, but like they weren't even having showrunners be on a through line through some of these projects, and that just sucks. I mean, you have to let people's creative visions flourish in those situations. You can't just pass it off to a bunch of different people and expect it to be cohesive. So I'm very excited that they looked at it and were like, oh no, and then started making attempts to redo it, because that is absolutely what needs to happen.
It's interesting they did it midstream, because Marvel will do that, but they'll do it after they've wrapped photography. They'll be like, let's fix it in post, let's do it later, let's do it in our massive reshoots. I can't believe
Marvel has we'll fix it in post. Like, most YouTubers do that, but not Disney. Come on.
Ever
like,
since Thor: The Dark World, they've had that policy. Just like, oh, we'll go back and what a great job fixing that one in post too.
Yeah, Jesus.
Matt, when do you think? I know we talked a little bit about like the slow kind of, when things started to feel disjointed. Is there a point for you when you recognize, like, oh, gee, Marvel TV bad? Like, Marvel Disney Plus not working? When did they lose you?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, some of the shows have had a lot, problems, but they've also had good moments. I did think Secret Invasion was easily the worst one that they've done, where even with the other shows, even when there was episodes that I would get frustrated with or parts that I was frustrated with, it didn't feel like homework to tune in to watch them. Whereas with Secret Invasion, that was the kind of thing where I was struggling. If we weren't doing these kind of things, I probably would have found something else to do than watch after the first couple of episodes. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think again, it's the sort of situation where your spider sense was tingling, so to speak, as you're watching these things, and you're going, "What is going on here? Something is off. Something is not right." Even if, in a lot of cases, there are good performances, interesting elements to all of these shows, great actors. Like I think of a show like Moon Knight, where I'm such a big Oscar Isaac fan. I loved what he was doing.
Same.
But then I watched the show, and when it was all done, I sat there and went like, you have this great actor and this very interesting character. Was this really like the best use of his time and this property and this concept? This character with multiple personalities and all of those sorts of elements. He doesn't know who he is. And what was the show ultimately? It was just like a big chase scene for, pointless MacGuffins. It's like, if ever like a character needed like a TV show, and not, one story chopped up as people are going from one place to another chasing after something. I kind of felt like that was it. And yeah, again, that's another element of that article that when you read it, it makes sense. This idea that they really weren't making them like TV shows. They were making them like long movies, which, I mean, I suppose in some situations that could work. And like we said, the early Marvel shows were a lot of fun. They kind of came barreling out of the gate where you were like, wow, they figured this out just as well as they did making movies. So
we talked
again,
extensively. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it really is curious how the wheels really fell off pretty quickly after those first couple of shows, where all of a sudden every new series, you were like, the first episode would come and you're like, okay, that was kind of, got some potential, and then the second episode would come out and you'd go, okay, and then the next episode, and by the third or fourth episode you go, well, they've only got like 3 episodes left to figure this out, and it's not really coming together, you know what I mean? That became kind of the way I would approach a lot of these shows. It would be like, you'd be very excited, the premise is great, all the people you want to see are in it, and then it's like week after week it was just like a increasingly frustrating, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory kind of vibe, where you kept waiting for everything to come together. And some of these shows are like 6 episodes. It's not a lot of time, especially in TV, to get your act together.
But when we talk about all these shows, the shows that I think we can universally, I would guess, praise the most are WandaVision and Loki. And both of them have a traditional TV structure where every episode is different. Now, Loki, you are on this like madcap chase to find He Who Remains, but there's an episode on Lamentus. There's an episode where they find Sylvie in the store. Like, every episode does have its own thing. There's an episode at the end of time. Whereas everything else, like you said, Moon Knight just seemed like this long thing that was cut up, and it makes people feel disconnected from the narrative, and why should I have to wait a week? It also makes people just want to binge it, which is the opposite of what Disney Plus wanted when they switched to this episode-by-episode model. Whitney, what is it you want to see Marvel TV do now? Like, is it a season 2 for a certain character? Is it just like take a long break? Are you dying to see Agatha and Ironheart? Like, what is it you're, as a fan, looking forward to the most here?
I do really want to see Agatha, like, so bad. But that also is because of that WandaVision high, because Catherine Hahn was just so amazing in that. So of course I want to see that follow-up, but also at this point I'm a little scared because I don't want it to be bad. And a bunch of other, Secret Invasion really is like the part where I'm just like, please God, I can't sit through another one of those. Like Matt was just saying, every other show has like redeemable qualities, but I just could not get behind Secret Invasion. So if they can do Agatha correctly, I want to see that so bad. I also think that it's just really smart of them to hold off on Ironheart until that one is made well too, because of the success of, Wakanda Forever and all that. Like, they want to keep that momentum going.
Well,
so I think it's smart that
filming
they're doing
last
these.
year, and now it's being pushed to next year.
Yeah.
Typically, studios don't sit on a winner for 2 years. You know what I mean?
know.
Like, I'm not.
No, it's
I've heard
true.
good things I've heard secondhand information from cast members that they really like it, but what are they going to say, you know?
Yeah.
And then you look at Wakanda Forever. When I look at that movie, I think the worst thing about it was that they shoehorned this character in for a spinoff. Like, it felt like a backdoor pilot for Riri Williams. Matt, what about you? Like, is there anything in particular you like super excited to see as like a comic book fan critic?
I don't know. I guess I'm most curious now after reading that article about seeing if anything changes as when these shows come out. Are they going to feel different, or is it going to continue in the trajectory that it's been on? You know, I mean, I was sort of curious about what this Daredevil show was going to look like. I mean, it's funny how when you described, Ryan, what the show originally, what they shot, which they're now mostly discarding, what it was going to be, because it's nothing like the Daredevil Born Again comic, which is a great comic, which I would have loved to have seen, the TV version of that. So, yeah, I mean, that's to me the main issue is like, what are we gonna see now when these shows that they've shot or they're working on now, when they come out, are they gonna feel more like Loki and WandaVision? Are they gonna feel more like a standard episodic television series, or is it gonna kind of continue in the same vein as your Secret Invasions or your Moon Knights or your Ms. Marvels? Although I thought that one was probably the best of those shows. So, that's
Ms. Marvel had some great...
Really
it had some
great
good stuff
episodes,
in it. Yeah, it had some good stuff.
And I also just think that Iman Vellani's like enthusiasm for it was so contagious and so palpable that it was like impossible for me not to like her, just because of like both her character and who she was and how excited she was in all the interviews about it. She was adorable. Back to Secret Invasion, the one thing we know from that is throwing money at something does not fix it. It seemed like that core that got rotten pretty quick. Looking back at Daredevil, I think we were all looking forward to that. 16 episodes, Born Again, they're taking the Netflix thing, it's a perfect cast, we all love Daredevil. It's just, the idea that they're going to go back to showrunners and pilot scripts makes so much sense, because apparently they didn't do that with Daredevil. How do you have 3 episodes without and then just greenlight that? Like, yeah, that sounds good. To me, it almost sounds their
like
homework on this.
It seems just it was compartmentalized, and that they just had to go. And we talked a lot about this last week and in our Secret Invasion kind of what the hell happened video. Disney's pumped the brakes. Like, once Iger came back in, they realized, like, hey, we're really hurting the brand on Marvel and to a certain extent Star Wars. So I'm glad they've done that. As a fan, I kind of get the impression from other fans, just based on what I've read on social media and stuff, fans seem okay with it. We'd rather wait a little longer than to get a stinker. I don't know, though, if the brand is permanently damaged after Secret Invasion or not, at least the Disney Plus brand. Do you guys think there's a future for Marvel TV? Should they even keep doing this, or should they do things like Werewolf by Night? Matt, what do you think? Where's their strength for success in this?
I mean, I would be shocked if they decided to stop making TV shows altogether. I do think we've already kind of seen definitely that they've kind of slowed down the output of stuff. I mean, it's tricky because the serialized nature of comic books is perfect for television. Like, in a way, it's kind of remarkable that they figured out how to be so successful making movies when comics were always more adaptable, at least structurally, to TV. I mean, one of the, you could say it as a positive or negative, but one of the things Marvel did when they made movies was they kind of turned movies into television, at least the kind of episodic, every film leads into the next film kind of structure of it all. So I don't see why Marvel can't make good shows, and they've proven they can. They've made a couple of good shows. So to me, it's I think it's less about abandoning television as it is maybe slowing the amount of stuff in general. Maybe not just in TV, but TV and movies, and taking a close look at what they're making, how they're making it, and maybe also like who it's about. You know, like, not that I don't love seeing these random characters getting their own shows. I mean, for me, that's some of the most fun, because I love the weird, strange, quirky characters of Marvel. But maybe not all of them need their own 10-episode television series, perhaps. Yeah. Maybe the audience doesn't necessarily want that. You know what I mean?
I think we've proven that as far as fatigue, it has, like, I think Phase 4 of the MCU had more hours of programming than Phase 1 through 3 combined. So it's interesting, Whitney, we talk about, oh my God, there's only 6 episodes. How do you get to know this story in 6 episodes? But on the flip side of that, there's, do I have to watch 10 episodes of She-Hulk to understand the next Avengers movie? Where do you think that line lives? Like, do you think that we're better off with longer seasons that maybe affect the movies less so they don't feel like homework? Or should we stick to shorter content?
I mean, I just really think that it ultimately depends on the quality, because if it's a quality show, I don't mind doing the homework because then it doesn't feel like homework. But obviously, it is a huge problem if they're going to continue on, which it sounds like they're not. It sounds like they're going to try. I hope that they try. I hope that they succeed. But if they had just continued pumping out these, like, it's almost like they're just feeding comic books into like a manufactured system, and just bullshit is just keeps popping out instead of taking time to like handcraft that shit, you know, and really put time into it and really put love into it, because you can feel it. You can just feel the difference. And I do think that we need kind of a break, because it is starting to feel like homework, because there's just so much, and you don't want to have to spend hours and hours and hours of your life just to be able to see the Marvels when it comes out in theaters, you know? Like, you might not want that, but I do think that you would want it if the content was good. So I'm torn. I just don't want them to do it with any more shitty shows, but as long as they really do fix the process, in that case, I'm down.
Going back to 2021, nobody was saying, oh God, another Marvel? Maybe because we'd had a year without anything.
Yeah.
But 2021, we had, off the top of my head, I think 5 shows, counting What If. We had 3 movies. Black Widow was even a hybrid release, and we were down for it. And looking back, I mean, Matt, I know you didn't like the Eternals. We've had discussions about that, but it's leagues better than Secret Invasion. And as much as people might not like Hawkeye, it's a lot better than Secret Invasion.
Yeah, I apologize for what I said about the Eternals before I knew that Secret Invasion was the way it was.
Exactly. And this year,
I don't apologize. I don't take back anything. I don't see what one has to do with the other.
No. They don't directly impact the other, but like when you're talking about a slope of quality, I think that they definitely, I thought they had hit a low point with a lot of stuff that like from like Thor: The Dark World, but boy, they proved me wrong. So Matt, Whitney, thank you both very much for joining me. Their socials are below. Matt is also the author of the upcoming Siskel and Ebert biography, Opposable Thumbs. Can't wait to read it. Thanks, guys. Now, we're all excited about Marvel TV raising their bar of excellence, and movie producers focusing on movies means that the quality of the film should rise as well. But I want to see these two sides of Marvel seamlessly integrated, like they were at the start of Phase 2. You see, very briefly, Marvel Studios' film and television studios were coordinated by the Marvel Creative Committee. Very long story short, this system fell apart because of internal Marvel politics. But the height of this, for me, was when the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ended on a cliffhanger that was resolved 2 days later when The Winter Soldier was released. And then, to see the epilogue of The Winter Soldier, you had to watch the next episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
It's gotta be some sort of activation signal to Hydra members within S.H.I.E.L.D.
So coordination like that is really difficult on a network TV schedule, but they pulled it off. And I would think that they would be able to do this more often with a streaming service because they have not promised advertisers to sell ad time on any of these shows. So what I want to see for the Daredevil show is a full coordination with the next Spider-Man film. Like I said, rumor has it that the show would have shown Wilson Fisk running for mayor, railing against vigilantes like Spider-Man. And we are dying to see Spider-Man and Daredevil team up, this time in costume.
I'm a really good lawyer.
So I would love to see this new Daredevil series lead to a mayoral election and a gang war that is resolved in the next Spider-Man film. They already teased that the next Spider-Man movie would be more street level, and maybe violence breaks out across the city, so Peter is desperate, so he turns to the darker, more powerful Venom symbiote, since he doesn't have Tony Stark's armor to rely on anymore. And that symbiote then imitates the darker heroes from the Daredevil show like him and the Punisher. Like, this is just a taste of the kind of crossover potential that Marvel has, and they have barely scratched the surface. Well, let me know, what do you think Marvel will do next? What kind of TV shows do you want to see? What TV show do you want to see get a season 2? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Arey.